like today, it'd be very easy on a Monday when we don't play until Thursday to go through the motions and just have low energy. And they're going live pitcher hitter today, and some of our guys that needed at bats were getting a ton of at bats. And I looked at over in the dugout, and the guys that start every day, we're going crazy for those guys.
Pay heed, all who enter. Beware of this podcast. That's right. This is the Pay Heed podcast on the Kansas City Sports Network. I'm Nick Springer, and I'm here with Kevin Flaherty, as always. But today, we also have a very special guest joining us, none other than the head baseball coach at KU, Dan Fitzgerald, going to help us talk about the upcoming postseason and how this season has gone for Kansas as well. So before we get started, the show is always brought to you by Emprise Bank, your partner in all things possible, member FDIC. But let's dive in with Coach Fitzgerald. Coach, first off, thanks so much for joining us. How you doing?
I'm great, guys. Thanks for having me. Always honored to be on with you guys.
Absolutely. We love talking to you, and obviously it's been a great season for you guys. But towards the end of the season, you're fighting for positioning towards possible postseason and whatnot. You head into a series on the road against the top team in the conference of West Virginia. What was your team's mentality heading into this final series of the regular season?
Yeah, I think it was similar to how it was all year, of just, one game at a time, one pitch at a time. And again, that can be so cliche-ish, but it really is how we've gone about it, and the mentality that we've had towards, respecting our opponent, respecting each game. And so I don't think anything changed. I think there are some things coaching-wise that, we had looked at. I don't look at a whole lot until I have to, and until it becomes, necessary and part of the equation. So I think there were pieces towards the end that you had to pay attention to with RPI and some of those things. So mentality inside the dugout was just, hey, let's just play baseball, and certainly served us well in Morgantown.
We talked when you first came on sort of about the energy surrounding the program and the fans and all the things that went along with it. But was there a point this season where you felt like, hey, we're not sort of the plucky underdogs that could, that we've got some fight, and hey, we're actually pretty good, and we're one of the best teams in the Big 12. Was there a moment that, I don't want to say that realization kicked in, but that you felt like, hey, this thing's for real. This isn't a couple week thing. It's not whatever. We have a darn good baseball team.
Yeah, I think I felt that last fall. There were moments in practice where I thought, man, we're very different. There were things in the first couple weekends where we played some really mature baseball. We had some, I think one of the hardest things to do is when you're losing. So you're down 2-3-0, and it's the third inning. Can you stay disciplined? And with the leadoff double, can you stay disciplined to just hit a ground ball to second base and move the guy to third? And I think sometimes you're down 3-0 and you think, man, if I just hit a 2-run shot right here. And I think we had some baseball players that just knew, hey, we've got 9 innings to make up the difference. And so I recognized that early in the season, that we had a maturity about our style of play. We've never talked about being underdogs or favorites or any of that stuff. It's always just been about how do we play our best baseball, and how much fun and enjoyment can we have as a team, and how long can we hold on to, at this point of the year, it's literally about how long can we stay together and play. Like I talk to him all the time about, the 93 team, which went to Omaha and has so many important records inside of our program. Those guys are back. They're connected. They're a special part of our history. And they don't talk about how many wins they had. And they don't talk about their stats. They talk about the brotherhood, being Jayhawks together. And so I think we spend so much time talking about that in being small pieces of a really big thing, that it takes away some of the pressure of, needing to do, we're the underdog, we're the, we're the favorite. It just takes it away into, hey, and honestly, guys, when you play 56 games, you have to have simple things that they can stay focused on. So I do think that there were plenty of moments in the fall and in the early spring where the veteran baseball coach in me looked out and said, "Hey, these guys are pretty good." Now, the other side of being a veteran coach is I saw all the warts, and I continue to see those too. That's I get paid to do that.
When it comes to starting pitching, you've talked a lot about innings pitched being something that you really pay a lot of attention to. Your starting pitches in the series against West Virginia went, I think, 20 and a third innings combined over the 3 games. How impressed were you by that, and how important maybe is that in this particular moment late in the season to maybe take some pressure off your bullpen heading into the postseason?
Yeah, it was huge, and Dom and Coop have done it all year. Cannon has been up and down in terms of that, but Cannon was lights out on Saturday. So we used 5 pitchers on the weekend, which is remarkable in and of itself. But I think the being rested, healthy, and energized at this point of the year is really important. And I think the way we played last weekend and the length that those guys had in their starts was huge to it. The other thing that was huge is we didn't have to. We knew going into the game after winning on Thursday, we knew that a win on Saturday would guarantee us a bye. And so we were able to get to a point in that game with Coop. Coop got through 7, and it was like, gosh, if Coop gives us one more, we bring in Breck for 1, and then we're not playing until next Thursday. So I think those were some strategic things that we thought of. But yeah, we were so rested that we had to go live pitcher hitter today at practice just to get those guys work, which is a remarkable thing to be doing on May 19th.
Yeah, I wanted to follow up on what you mentioned there about that bye in the Big 12 tournament. How important was that to you? Was that something you were really focused on heading into the series against West Virginia? And maybe as you kind of outlined, once you realized you had a chance to do it, did that change at all your strategy in the course of that series?
I went into West Virginia with total blinders on to win the game on Thursday. And I thought we had a really good matchup with Dom and a really good matchup with Coop. And so I literally just put I didn't watch one pitch of their Friday starter until Thursday night after our game. So it was just all in on game 1. And then when we knew we had the window to get in there, if you do the equations at the end of the season, you can spend hours on the what ifs. And the reality is it doesn't change. I told the team at practice today, I said, guys, we could talk about RPI and hosting and national seeds, and we could spend a bunch of time talking about that, and it would impact how we play 0. So let's just focus on playing really good baseball. And I do think the bye is huge, though, because it's just one less game to tax your pitchers before the NCAA tournament.
I wanted to ask about Chase Diggins. We talked to him last week about playing catcher and how that was something he hadn't really done at this level. Was there a conversation with him about playing that position and sort of what was that process like?
Yeah, we struggled. We really struggled this fall catching. That was a massive area of concern coming into the spring. And we had pieces back there, but it just didn't feel like we were as deep there as we needed to be. And so we talked to a couple guys, and, catching is unique in that you have to want to be a catcher. It's like when a guy's listed as a infielder, outfielder, there's a big difference between an infielder, outfielder who wants to be an infielder or wants to be an outfielder. If they want to be an outfielder, they're never going to be an infielder. If they want to be, if they don't want to be a catcher, it's not going to work. And so Diggy was like, heck yeah. I mean, right away was like, absolutely, I'll catch. And, he would do anything. He'd play center field. He'd pitch. We had him throw a bullpen the other day, like literally just threw a bullpen. And we just approached him on it, and he jumped back there one day, and it was really natural. And I remember sitting in my car I pulled up and he was getting loose. It was right at the end of the fall, and I was over in the offices and I had a meeting, and then I ended up pulling my car around towards the bullpen. And when I pulled up, he had his gear on and he was just getting down to the crush to start to, work on some drills. And he looked so natural doing it. Like his glove just worked, his hand, he could receive it and it wasn't clanky. And he's such a great thrower that it just made a ton of sense. And he has no fear. So blocking and all that stuff. And then, he's super confident and a great leader. So he's got all the intangible pieces. And then he and Hancock just went to work on it. And he's turned into a really good catcher. Like, I have complete and total confidence in him when he's back there. And you'll definitely see him catching again really soon.
You guys move him around and you move other guys around as well. How important, I guess, or how nice is it to have some of that positional versatility for you as a coach, with maybe the confidence you have in those guys playing different positions?
Yeah, it's huge. We experimented with it the last couple of years out of necessity, and this year was out of strategy, which is obviously a way better way to do it when you are putting them there because it makes the most sense for the game versus, hey, we have to do this right now. So it's great. There are things. Council's been unbelievable in left and at third base. Diggy is, it's interesting. Diggins is really good at second base. Brooksy's really good at third. Council's really good at third. Barth can play all three positions. Mike can play all three positions. Haugie's we would probably need to work Haugie a lot more in left field, but he's really confident and good in right. And he can play first base. Dariel can jump in a bunch of different places. Sawyer can certainly play every infield position, but he's our best shortstop, so he never moves. And both Ian and Max Solis have played some first base. Wisdom can play outfield and first base. So it becomes a real weapon. Oh, and then TJ Williams can literally, he can kind of do it all. So we've got more flexibility than we've actually played with, just because the games have played out very similarly in that in the 8th or 9th when we have a lead. And then let me back up. If you're throwing a sinker ball or ball is going to be on the ground, it makes a ton of sense to have your best infield defense in there. With some of our ride guys, it's important to have the correct infielders in there, but it's way more important to have the correct outfielders in. So there's a guessing game at the end of, okay, are we going to Lynn right now? Or are we going to Breck? If we're going to Breck, we need these guys in defensively. If we're going to Lynn or Cooper Moore versus Vagley. So it's been really fun. It's a challenge because it's a Rubik's Cube that you're spinning going, gosh, I think they're all lining up, but we've got 56 games to go off of, and in a team of guys very, very willing to experiment and do different things. I bet you if we asked our guys, we have 10 guys that think they can play shortstop and center field. Now we don't, but there are 10 guys that are like, heck yeah, I can catch, I can play short, I can play center, I can pitch. And certainly as a coach, you want to have that confidence.
We interrupt this interview with Dan Fitzgerald to bring you very important news, which is if you're going to be supporting Kansas baseball or KU athletics in general, you should be doing it while wearing home field apparel. That's right. Shop home field apparel at homefieldapparel.com. Use the promo code PAID24. They've got a fantastic KU baseball hat, KU baseball jerseys. I, of course, am always rocking the namesake of the show here with the Pay Heed shirt. They've got 40-plus Kansas items to choose from. And if for whatever reason you got somebody in your family or a friend or relative who's a fan of a different school, they've got you covered. 140 other schools you can choose from, so you can get maybe a gift for somebody as well. So you should be rocking that KU gear, though, especially the KU baseball gear with Kansas heading to the Big 12 tournament. That's homefieldapparel.com. Use that promo code PAID24. You can get 15% off your first order over at homefieldapparel.com. And more of our conversation with Dan Fitzgerald is coming up next. Shop Chiefs tickets and more with no fees. Plus, save big with code KCSN at ticketsforless.com, the official ticket provider of KC Sports Network.
Success in real estate takes more than vision. It takes the right financial partner. When someone takes something rundown and turns it into something great, that's called a comeback story, like Brain Group. They take distressed properties here in KC, completely rework them, and then turn them into valuable real estate. But that kind of work needs the right bank behind it. Enter Emprise Bank. They're not about cookie-cutter loans. They saw Brain Group's vision, backed them, and now they're making big moves in Kansas City real estate. Talk about your partner in possible. Emprise doesn't do one-size-fits-all financing. They invest in potential and back growth. Visit emprisebank.com/KC to learn more. Emprise Bank. Member FDIC. Equal housing lender.
It's playoff time, and if you're still just watching games, then you're missing out. With Pick 6 from DraftKings, you can turn your hoops knowledge into real cash. Just make your picks, track your score, and if you hit all 6, you're looking at bigger payouts than Prize Picks flex plays. Nobody's dropping better payouts than Pick 6. Hit 6 picks, and that's 25 times your cash. And if you beat your competitor, you could be looking at a 500 times bag in your pocket. And right now, new customers get $50 in bonus picks with just a $5 entry. The playoffs are on, so why not take a shot at making a little money while you're watching? Download the DraftKings Pick 6 app right now and use code KCSN. That's code KCSN to play $5 and get $50 in bonus picks. Better payouts, bigger wins, only on Pick 6 from DraftKings. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org in Connecticut. Must be 18 plus. Age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Pick 6 not available everywhere, including New York and Ontario. Void where prohibited. One per new customer. Bonus awarded as non-withdrawable Pick 6 bonus picks that expire in 14 days. Limited time offer. Terms at pick6.draftkings.com/promos.
With the different format of the Big 12 tournament and single elimination, you talked about the decision making a little bit, and we don't want you to give away your strategy or anything, but how does that impact maybe how you consider going about pitching and pitching changes?
We're in a good spot given the fact that the max number of games we can play is 3.
Sure.
I think the reality is that we have you have to play the conference tournament a little bit differently when you know you're in the NCAA tournament versus if it's the end of the road and it's lose and go home. I think that is very different. I think the fact that we played Thursday, Friday, Saturday against BYU, Thursday, Friday, Saturday against West Virginia, now we're Thursday, Friday, Saturday again. I think that actually lines us up, perfectly where we don't have to stretch too much. I think there are a couple areas that I think have to be smart with. Breckheimer going into Saturday, we just made the decision, hey, we cannot throw him. Breck would have shown up to the park and told us that he was fine if I had given him that option on Saturday. So I didn't even give him the option. He was just scratched right away. So there may be a case where, if someone's tweaked or something's not right, that you have to make the decision to preemptively do it. But I don't think, unless we play some crazy extra inning games and it swings differently, I don't think there's a whole lot we need to do, because competitively, our greatest strength is our ability to compete, and hopefully we get to do it for 3 games here.
You mentioned feeling like without having to worry about the possibility of just your season being over, basically having the idea of the NCAA tournament sort of locked up. Will that, do you think, free up the team a little bit heading into the Big 12 tournament more so than otherwise, or do you think that matters at all?
I don't think we could be a whole lot more free than we are right now. I mean, these guys are having so much fun. It's interesting. We have so many guys that have played just a ridiculous amount of baseball. They played 60 games this summer in the Northwoods League and have done that. Sawyer Smith and Jackson Hauge and some of these guys they've just played a boatload of baseball. So, and I think they know that as a staff, I think they trust us. I think they know that we're behind them. We're there to help prep them. We're all just in it together. So I think there's a freedom in which these guys just naturally play with because of who they are. I do think that things like, conference tournaments and Big 12 championships and regionals, there is a tendency to make it more than it is. And I think that's where, as a staff, we'll have to continue to remind them of, like I told him today at practice, it's just, there's no reason for us to switch lanes. Like there's no reason. There's no reason to all of a sudden start thinking differently. And, now we need to do this because it's the postseason. We need to continue to be who we are, continue to get better, continue to grow. Like we lifted today at practice. Like that was a great lift. Tomorrow we practice, then we lift again. Like we need to keep getting stronger physically. So no, I think we are in a great spot. And I'm just honestly at this point trying to make sure they're all moving in the same direction. And then when that first pitch is thrown, it's just the gates are open and you just let them go.
I know you're a Major League Baseball guy as well, and if you're the Royals, you're going to see the White Sox approximately 250 times every season. So you get pretty used to playing. College is a little bit different, but you've seen both of the teams that you might face on Thursday, and I'm interested from a college perspective. I mean, is that an advantage to having played them before? Having seen them before, scouted them before, all of those different things.
Well, they've seen us before too.
Sure.
Every coach in this league is really good. And I've thought about this a lot in that I think at the beginning of the year, I don't know what the percentages are, but let's say it's 70%, against Corpus Christi opening weekend, it's probably 70% what we do, 30% what they do, meaning we really had, this is scouting report and who's the reliever coming in and, what does his stuff play like? And then you get to the middle of the year and it's probably 80-20. And then you get a little bit towards the end and it's 90-10. Well, right now it's 98% what we do, 2% what they do. If I got any of the coaches on the Big 12 on this call right now and said, hey, how are you guys going to pitch to Ballinger? It would be the same way that I would pitch to Ballinger. Any of the good players special players in our league, it's not like they're sneaking up on any of us. So I think it's so much to do with how you prepare. And then there are some commonalities with, how teams score, how teams produce runs, how teams go to the bullpen, and I think that's one thing we'll look at on Wednesday is who does Baylor throw and who does Oklahoma State throw. And, I joke, hopefully they play 17 innings in a 18-17 thriller where they use their whole pen. But no, I think it's so much to do with us. And I guarantee the other coaches would say the same thing. It's just about how you play. And we played those teams a long time ago. Like Baylor's a very different team. That was the opening weekend of conference play. And Oklahoma State was, a couple months ago. So a lot has changed in that time.
You mentioned earlier talking about thinking ahead to the Big 12 tournament, or with the West Virginia series, or what your mentality was. When you look at the postseason, even more so heading into the NCAA tournament, is the possibility of like hosting a regional, for example, is that something that's even crossed your mind at this point, or are you just really kind of letting that be or setting that aside until that opportunity maybe comes?
No, that had to cross our mind, months ago, because you have to submit a bid to host, and so that was something that we discussed and went forward with, and I think we put ourselves in that discussion with, I think there are 5, 6, 7, 8 teams, that are locked kind of as the national seeds. The no-brainer they're hosting. And then I think that list is probably 11, 12 deep. And then you've got your last, 4 or 5 slots that are really up for grabs, and everyone can make a good case on those. So I think about it in terms of, checking with Luke, our superstar ops guy, to make sure that, hey, we crossed our T's there and done the things we need to do. And then, we've got an entire operation at KU of people and marketing and social media and everything else that will be doing everything in their power to highlight how awesome our ballpark is, how awesome the fan experience is, and those. But everyone's going to do that. It just comes down to, who are the 16 most deserving regional hosts, and then is there a regional presence to it? Like there has to be. If these are truly regionals, then there has to be a West Coast, there has to be an East Coast, there has to be all those things. So I feel like we're in that conversation. I feel like we probably have some work we still need to do, but the Big 12 is certainly deserving of having multiple hosts. And I'll say this, in the last, 10 years, I don't think there's ever been a team with 40 plus wins and 20 wins in conference that hasn't hosted. So I think we put ourselves in a great spot analytically and in terms of data that would support that we're there. But if we busted out the list of those teams right now, there are a bunch of them that have had great seasons as well.
Obviously, you'd like to win, but is there anything specific that you want to see this week that would sort of make you feel more optimistic for the NCAA tournament, where you'd say, hey, this is something that we'd like to see clicking this week that would get us there?
I think I want the guys to just continue to enjoy it. I don't think, well, I know they don't. I'm old, but I'm not old enough that I don't remember being their age. I feel a whole lot younger than I actually am. Like my wife got me a present for my 40th birthday. And I was like, who turned 40? Like, why are we talking about my 40th birthday? That's in like 25 years. But, I want them to enjoy it. Like I've been so blessed to be a part of so many of these. And I remember every single one with such detail and such specificity of, gosh, I remember we practiced at DBU today and the guys were asking about, they have all the regional and super regional banners on the wall. And they said, hey, what happened that year? And, without blinking, you're like, oh man, that was a really cool one at Texas Tech, or that's the one we won at TCU. That one was at Arkansas. And I remember Derek Hall, who's in the big leagues, and Cody Funderburk, who's in the big leagues. And you remember them so specifically. But I've also had, I've done this for a long time. So these guys some of these guys, this is their only shot. Like we've got a bunch of seniors who have never, Michael Brooks has never played in a regional. I want him to enjoy it. I want him to have the time of his life. Haugie and I were talking, last weekend. I said, Haug, this is pretty cool, man. You think of where you are right now. Like, this is so cool. And so I think more than anything, I want them to play with complete and total freedom that they've earned. Like, they have earned the right to be themselves. I think I tell them all the time, confidence comes from the preparation that you put in, and then trusting that it's enough, and trusting that your effort with the preparation is going to be enough. And so these guys are prepared at such a high level. Honestly, we're playing with house money at this point. It's just go enjoy it, go have fun, and let's keep playing baseball as long as we can.
A couple of guys I wanted to ask you about specifically. We talked about starting pitching earlier on, and obviously I think Dom gets he had a lot of the accolades heading into the season and is as sort of your main guy. But I'm fascinated by Cooper Moore and sort of his journey. He gives you 8 innings against West Virginia over the weekend with 8 strikeouts. What has stood out to you about him stepping into the role he has now? Because that's obviously not what he's been over the course of the whole season. Well, what's maybe most impressed you about his journey?
Oh man, that's a loaded question because Coop's got a lot on his journey. I think Cooper is, above all else, Cooper is an incredible competitor, and he's super talented. But when we decided to start him this year, and that was something we looked at last fall, I just kept, and really last summer, when I looked at my staff and just said, gosh, I think Coop needs to start. Like, we've got some really good bullpen pieces, and no question Coop would be one of the top bullpen arms in the Big 12, but he's such a great athlete and such a great mover. And it's the same thing with Dom. Like, if we ask the guys the pitchers to raise their hands if they think they could do both in college. They would all raise their hands. I mean, every pitcher thinks they're a two-way guy, and then you ask them how many at-bats they had in high school, and it's like, well, I didn't hit. And you're like, okay, well, I think that answers that. But Cooper and Dom were both two-way guys that could absolutely do both. And we shut it down pretty quick with Dom because we knew he was going to be really special on the mound. And Cooper, very clearly early on, it just became obvious that it was going to be electric on the mound. So I think his buy-in to throw away the catcher's gear and just be a full-time PO is a big story in his journey. You throw in massive competitiveness. That's another massive piece of his recipe. And then I think you throw in the fact that, he's had to deal with some stuff, and, he's had to bounce back, and he's had to persevere, and he's had to, he's carried a different load than I think some guys. And he's done some parts of it with incredible maturity, and he's done other parts of it with less maturity, but he's always responded to the adversity in a really awesome way. So Cooper Moore is exactly what you want in terms of competitive nature. Like, if you bottle up that competitiveness, make $1 billion selling it. And it's the same thing with Dom. So they're both good. They're both talented, and they both have electric stuff. And I think they're both going to pitch in the big leagues, but it's the makeup in terms of their competitive nature that really separates them.
If you could sort of distill all the success from this season down to one thing and put it on one thing, what would it be?
I think there's a humility to our group that, and we do all kinds of things that, I mean, I watch some of our highlights and I'm like, that bat flip was really excessive. And, there's Osoria chucked his bat after the walk-off, and Hauge flipped one up that my immediate thought was I was looking for my kids to make sure they didn't get impaled by it. And we do some things like that certainly wouldn't fall into the category of massive humility. But when I say that, I mean the humility that they have towards each other and towards the game, a respect for the preparation, and just a real, I think there is a respect for, like today, it'd be very easy on a Monday when we don't play until Thursday to go through the motions and just have low energy. And they're going live pitcher hitter today, and some of our guys that needed at bats were getting a ton of at bats. And I looked over in the dugout, and the guys that start every day were going crazy for those guys. And we were at DVU. There was 0 people in the crowd. There was no music. There was no environment. Like, it was just a Monday morning practice. But again, there's a respect and a humility towards each other, towards the team, towards the process. And it's been really fun, man. I'm very proud. I'm very, very proud of this team.
Last question from me, Coach, here before we let you go. Sort of going big picture, maybe looking even further into the future. Is there anything from this season, some sort of replicable formula you feel like could be taken to apply to future seasons? I think sustainability is probably a big thing that's maybe on your mind looking at this program going forward. Is there anything specific you think that you feel like is going to be able to carry over? Is it that humility? Is it that you just talked about, or is there something else you think that you can carry over with this program?
Yeah, I think the fact that we have, from day one in June of 22 until now, have just followed this course of identification and evaluation and how do they fit in, and what's the skill level, and what's the specific need that we have, and what's the makeup, how do they fit in the culture, how do they do that. And I think that each step we've taken, there's been, like, you take a step, but then you have to look around and see where you're at. And I always talk about, I don't know why, but probably because I'm not very creative, but I always think about when you're, I'll never forget, man, we swept BYU last year at BYU, and I had been talking to the guys the whole time about, hey guys, we're on a journey. And right now, like, at the beginning of year one, it was a concrete path, like you could drive on it. And some of the changes were just like, hey, guys, just follow the path. And then, year two, it shrinks a little bit. And so we go on this hike last year at BYU, and the trail just gets narrower and narrower and narrower. And it goes from pavement to rock to broken rock to just dirt. And then like you're having to cut the path. And so I think it's the walk up the hill gets harder and harder and harder. But you constantly have to be looking around to see, okay, are we going the right direction? And so I think there's all kinds of stuff that we have to steal from the past 3 years as we then finish this year and then go into year 4 and year 5. And I think my job as a head coach and thankfully I just have an amazing staff, and we collaborate so well together, and we all kind of fill in our holes. But I think I do a good job of sitting at 30,000 feet, making sure we're all moving in the same direction. But I think I have the right staff to be able to do that, because they're on the ground moving those guys that direction. And so, yeah, the humility, there's some baseball pieces I think that we learned this year. I think one of our big takeaways last year was we needed to up the power outage offensively. So we addressed that in recruiting, and that certainly has paid for itself tenfold. And then I think there's some mistakes that we've made along the way too. Some places where maybe we overvalued something or undervalued something. I think we probably sacrificed some speed in place of power. And there have been some times this year where I have thought, gosh, it'd be really nice to threaten stealing a base. I think we were playing Utah, and Gary Henderson, who is a wonderful man and a Hall of Fame coach. One of our guys was leading out first with nobody out, and they put the first baseman behind him. And I'm like, well, that's probably not a good sign. I don't think we're fooling them about whether or not we're going to steal. So I think it's constantly learning, constantly adjusting. And then let's be honest, guys, college baseball right now is so different than it was 3 years ago when we started in college athletics in general. I joke that NIL used to be this thing where you like, when I got hired, NIL was like, oh, sweet, I'm going to go to 23rd Street Brewery, and if I tweet something out once a week, I get a free burger. And it turned into a way bigger deal than that. And now rev share is like,
yeah.
So anyway, it's changed. We'll keep evolving, but I love the direction. Part of a massive chunk of this is an incredible administration and what Travis Goff has done, and Sean Lester. And so it's a special, special place, and can't wait to keep moving it forward.
Well, your talk of value brings me to my last question, and that's last time we talked to you. You talked about just missing Bill James coming out to one of the games. Did you get a chance to meet Bill James, and if so, what was that experience like? Because I'm an analytics guy. I know he's a hero for you. And
no, I haven't met him. I have his email address. And the second our season is over, he's getting an email with an invite for lunch wherever he wants to go.
Awesome.
But I got to build up some courage, man. Like I part of it is in season.
Sure.
This is every minute's accounted for. And a quick email exchange with Bill James isn't going to do it for me. Now that I've got access, he might not answer that email. Now that I've got access to the guy, he might be like, this is the worst decision I've ever made. But yeah, I can't wait to get together with him.
Well, Coach, as you said, every minute counts, and we so are very gracious for your time. We appreciate you so much. Wish you the best of luck going forward in the postseason, in the Big 12 tournament, the NCAA tournament, and thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks, guys. Rock John.
That was head coach Dan Fitzgerald. For Kevin Flaherty, I'm Nick Springer. Thanks for joining us today, and until next time, we'll talk to you again very soon. See ya.